And let's, just so you know, as I was moving the board around, literally there's a screw loose in the board. So I can't flip the board, so I'm going to have to erase and do some different things like that throughout the morning here. But let's go ahead and let's get started with core values. We've talked about, you see, look at how out of sorts I am this morning. I don't have my little box up here, right? When we talk about core values, we talk about how Jesus had this core value. Just hold on to those for a minute here. Jesus had this core value of valuing people. Jesus always valued people. Now, at Cochrane Community Church, we have 8 core values. Those core values are Bible, prayer. I'm sorry, I missed. Outreach. Outreach. I heard service. I heard community. I love this. Relevancy. Relevancy. What are the last 2? Stewardship. And worship. Worship. All right. Now, within this group, we have 2 core values we put on top of it. We've talked before. Every group that gets together has some values that they have in common. And the values that we have in common are timeliness and growth, right? And I'm going to tell you today, as I was preparing for this, I think I might offer another value for you today. I don't know if you'll be up for it. But I want to just, I'll preface this by saying there's a value in this, one of the stories I'm going to share with you today that has meant a whole lot to me, and maybe it's going to mean something to you. Maybe it's going to mean something to you. So, couple of things. Now, let me just embarrass myself here with this. So I script out my lesson. I have my lesson, and I have to try to help me find the right words to be able to share with you. But what I did this morning is whenever I was done, I said, I don't know that I can see this. And so I changed the font size, but I didn't save it. So whenever I went to print it, it's printed in microscopic print for me. And so I'm looking at this like, this is a challenge. So I have, now that pretty much everybody's here, I'm going to hold this up. Who here has done, have I given this worksheet to before? Laura, I know you've seen it. Mary, we got 5 or 6. If you have not seen this worksheet, I'm going to ask that you put your hand up. Taryn and Riley, can you get those distributed? Now, when you get this, turn it face down. Turn it face down, and I'm going to take you through this. There's some important lessons for us to learn here this morning. All right. So now, last week was Easter. Did the Easter Bunny find anybody last week? Anybody make short work of their Easter basket? Like that was how it was in my house. Now, I don't know who does the organizing of Easter in your house, if it's like mom or dad, but I'll tell you, for the most part in my household, it's mom. But dad feels left out sometimes, so there's times where dad goes and has to be involved in something, and I'll go and I'll buy some trash to put in an Easter basket. Now, I'm going to tell you, I come about this honestly because this is what my dad did for me. And the story that I would share with you is several of you know that my mom and dad have the coin shop in town, and it was not always in town. You go back 25 years, and we were in Meadville. You go back to 1985, we were actually across from where Walmart would be built. But in the early 90s, the coin shop was in Dahlkemper's Plaza, which is where Griffin Motors is now, right? And we were getting close to Christmas, and my dad apparently had a conversation with my mom what went, "I'll take care of the stockings. You don't have to worry about anything." Now, I don't know where you would do such stocking stuffer shopping, but my dad decided that he would go to Staples, right? Because that's where you would find good things to put in a stocking. And one of the things that was in my stocking, and this is probably 1993, was this 3-pound bag / pillow of rubber bands. It was just this, I'm still working through them, right? You know, it's just this, like you can literally put your head on this bag of pillows. You know, that's just where it is. So when my brother and I got up on Christmas morning, we found that not only one of us, but both of us had these giant bags of pillows. And you know, I would ask you this question: what weighs more, a pound of bacon or a pound of rubber bands? It's the same. But I'm going to tell you, it's a lot more rubber bands. There's a lot more rubber bands in a pound of rubber bands than there is in a pound of bacon. Anyway, last weekend, you know, with being Easter, it's often a joke that comes up in my family around, well, what do you want in your Easter basket? Well, we could get rubber bands, and that's especially between my brother and I. So anyway, but the thing about rubber bands is I didn't appreciate rubber bands in 1993. I didn't, but I do today. It's such an important tool because there's such an important lesson that we can learn from rubber bands. And it's actually one of my more favorite lessons to teach, although it's been a couple of years since the last time I taught it. And just by the raising of hands, I don't think many of you have heard me teach about rubber bands before. You didn't expect to get that when you came to church this morning, did you? You thought, oh, I'm going to hear about the blood of the Lamb. Nobody thought, I'm going to hear about a rubber band this morning. None of you thought that, did you? So, but there's an important lesson about a rubber band that we cannot overlook. And the lesson is this: rubber bands only work when they are stretched. And for those of you that take notes, you may want to write that down. Rubber bands only work when they are stretched. So today's lesson is actually going to be on something called the law of the rubber band. And the law of the rubber band says that growth stops when you lose the tension between where you are and where you could be. Growth stops when you lose the tension between where you are and where you want or could be. Right? That's where we are. So, you know, when you think about this, we increase our value when we are stretched. When we've been stretched, things happen and we become more valuable because of the experiences and the things that we learn and so on and so forth. And in that regard, we become just like rubber bands. So I would like to, let's go through this numbers exercise now. So anybody need a numbers sheet? Okay, everybody has one. Okay, keep it face down, and you're just going to use your finger. okay? I've lost my phone. I'm going to time you. Now, when you turn this over, when I'm going to tell you to turn it over, I'm going to time you for 20 seconds. I'm not going to give you a whole lot of time. You need to find number 1, and then you just want to, using your finger, go from number 1 to number 2 to number 3. I want to see how high you can get. I think it goes up to 88. I don't think anybody's going to get to 88 in 20 seconds. But I want to see how high you can get in 20 seconds. So let me figure out how to start a timer on my phone. Everybody understand the instructions. Flip it over, start with 1, see how high we can get in 20 seconds. All right, go. That's time. That's time. Who made it to 5? Who made it to 10? Anybody make it to? Nobody made it to 10. Oh, Scott and Matt. How high did you get? 11. You got to 11. What'd you get? You got to 10. All right. Maybe it was just a fluke. Maybe it's just a fluke. Let's try it again. Face down. Face down. 20 seconds. 20 seconds. Go. Time. All right, who did better? Most of you did better. Who got to 10 this time? Oh. Anybody do worse than the last time? What'd you get? You got 8 this time, right? Now, there's a secret to this worksheet. There's a secret to it. So I want you to look at this worksheet. And I want you to look along the border. Look along the border, and you're going to see little tick marks about halfway across and about halfway down. So what I want you to do is I want you to fold it in half. Fold it in half long ways, and then fold it in half short ways. On those tick marks. And now what you have are 4 quadrants. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to tell you that there is a pattern to this worksheet. There's a pattern to this worksheet, and it's that it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, and it circles. All right, so face down. Face down. Now, this is mentoring. This is the most basic mentoring and the most basic discipleship you're ever going to get. But I want you to see the impact that this has, because I'm going to give you 20 seconds. And now that you know how this works, I want you to see what happens. All right? So 20 seconds, maybe. I got to unlock it. All right, ready? Go. Time. All right. Talk to me. Talk to me. Who did better? Anybody do worse? Scott, you did worse.
I'm tapping out. I'm done.
Oh my goodness. Anybody make it to 15? Oh man. Who doubled? Who doubled up what they've done? A few of you. There you go. There you go. Yeah. Yeah, see, that's now what you don't realize here is that each time you were going through this, I could have given you 20 seconds multiple times. We could have done this next week. You would have come back. You would have gotten similar results. That's what would have happened. You would have gotten similar results. But then what I did is I stretched you. I gave you a different way of doing things. And you know what? You had to have some level of faith to believe me. with that. Because I could have told you that, and it could have gone one way, and then it could have reversed. Like, you had to have some level of faith to do that. And you did. And now it's pretty obvious, right? Now if I would give you 30 seconds, you could probably get it to 40, right? You would just be like boom, 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 and you'd be picking up momentum. You'd be picking up win after win after win after win. And with one exception. Oh, Steve, did you say you did?
I didn't even get one at a time because you said no, that you have it. I'm like, what do I have figured out? I was looking to see what I was supposed to have figured out. I didn't even get one.
Oh, you didn't even get to one. Oh, well, that's probably on me in that case, Steve. But there you go. Yep. So, but understand this: growing's not easy. Growing's not easy, but like a rubber band, growing does require us to stretch, right? Now, God gave each one of us the gift of potential. Who in here has potential? This is a IQ test. We all have potential in here, right? Now the question is, how many of us have maxed out our potential? Right? I think we would all agree that we all have more potential that we can that we can grow, that we can develop. And so, while God gives us the gift of potential, what our gift back to God should be developing our potential. It should be stretching our potential. It should be making the most of the talents and resources that He has given us for the benefit of others. Right? That's where we are. So the Bible records many stories of people who were stretched. And this is by no means a comprehensive list, but this is the list that I jotted down here. But if you think about the parable of the talents, the three servants, the master gives them some talents and goes away. And what did they do? Some of them stretched, right? One of them didn't. Like they did that. The story of David and Goliath. David stretched beyond his comfort zone to face the giant Goliath, right? Moses in the burning bush. Moses had to stretch himself to go before Pharaoh and to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. When the Israelites left Egypt, they had to stretch, right? And we know that they didn't really like it. They grumbled all the time. If only we were back in Egypt, right? There's these examples of stretching. God goes to Noah and says, I want you to build an ark. There was a stretch that Noah had to do to build an ark. Right? Joseph, when he's sold into slavery, he's going through all these different struggles and trials in Egypt, and he had to be stretched continually through that process. Daniel, he stretched his faith to remain faithful to God, and what happened to him? He got thrown in the lion's den. Right? There's this stretch. Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, they stretched their faith by refusing to bow down to the statue, and they were put into the fiery furnace. Right? There's all these stretches. The story of Elisha and the widow's oil. Elisha says, "Hey, make some stuff for me, and bread, and you can." Keep filling up this jar of oil. Like there was this stretch. How about this one? Jesus is on the hillside, and the disciples come and said, we should send these people home so they can get something to eat. And Jesus says, what do we got to work with? And those disciples, they were stretched that day, and thousands were fed. Right? But I would say this, I think one of my favorite examples of stretching is the story of Abraham. The story of Abraham is one of my favorites. And I will tell you this, if you would turn with me to Genesis chapter 15. Genesis 15, verse 6. Now, for those of you with a paper Bible, or whatever, I don't know, a hard copy Bible, whatever the right word is, if you are an underliner, if you are a highlighter, I want to encourage you, if you haven't done so already, this is such an impactful verse. It's such an impactful verse. Genesis chapter 15, verse 6. It reads, Abram believed the Lord, and he, the Lord, credited to him, Abram, as righteousness. Abraham believed. Now the thing is Abraham had to believe, and that was a stretch for him, because by the time we get to Genesis chapter 15, Abram's already done some stuff, right? He's already done some stuff. Abram heard the call of God, and he was told, leave your family and go west, young man. And he did. And now here we are many years later, and he doesn't have a whole lot to show for it. He doesn't have any family yet. And God comes before him and gives him this next invitation, and it says, Abram believed. And I'm going to tell you, that had to be a stretch. That absolutely had to be a stretch. He believed the God who makes promises and the God who keeps promises, and that made him right with the Lord. Now, I'm going to ask you to turn way back in your Bible to the book of Hebrews chapter 11, because we're going to get the summary of Abraham's story in this Hebrews 11 verses 8 through 19. And as we read this story, whenever we read this expression, or you see this word faith, I want you to think stretch. I want you to think stretch. Okay, there's that, like there was something that said this is comfortable, right? But faith required him to stretch. It required him to stretch. So let's pick up Hebrews 11, starting at verse 8. It reads, by faith, Abraham, when called to let me try this again in English. My apologies. By faith, Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going. By faith, he made his home in the promised land like a stranger in a foreign country. He lived in tents, as did Isaac and Jacob, who were heirs with him of the same promise. For he was looking forward to the city with foundations, whose architect and builder is God. And by faith, even Sarah, who was past childbearing age, was enabled to bear children because she considered him faithful who had made the promise. And so, from this one man, and he as good as dead, came descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as countless as the sand on the seashore. All these people were still living by faith when they died. They did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from a distance, admitting that they were foreigners and strangers on earth. People who say such things show that they are looking for a country of their own. If they had been thinking of the country they had left, they would have had opportunities to return. Instead, they were longing for a better country, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. Verse 17, by faith, Abraham, when God tested him, offered Isaac as a sacrifice. He had embraced the promises. He who had embraced the promises was about to sacrifice his one and only son, even though God had said to him, "It is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned." Abraham reasoned that God could even raise the dead. And so, in a manner of speaking, he did receive Isaac back from death. Like Abraham, what a fantastic story of somebody who was stretched again and again and again and again. And he is a foundational character in our faith because he stretched, right? He was stretched to leave his family and his homeland. He was stretched to believe that he would one day have a son. He was stretched to offer his only son to God, right? And he was stretched to believe these things would happen even when time was not on his side. Like all these things happened at inopportune times. So believe it or not, there's a number of benefits to being stretched. And I'm going to go through I'll leave this up here, but I'm going to go through 7 items to share with you about things to consider about being stretched. And the first thing that I would give you, number 1, is that few people want to be stretched. If God came to you today and said, leave the land that you're in and go somewhere else, how many of you would be anxious to do that? Very few of us, right? Few people want to be stretched. You see, people who don't want to be stretched, there's actually a 7-letter name. We could play. There's a 7-letter name that we call these people, and it starts with an A, and it ends with an E. There's a 7-letter name we call these people, and it's not a very complimentary name. And I would suggest to you that this name would probably be considered a curse from God. All right, that's what I would suggest to you. God did not make us for this word to be used with us, right? He created each of us with a special purpose. And I will tell you that people that have this name are largely and quickly forgotten. We remember Abraham because this name doesn't describe him. And the name that you would use is average. God did not make us to be average. He made us to be like rubber bands. He made us to be stretched, right? I would actually go so far as to encourage you to not use this word yourself anymore. It's not a complimentary. It's not a complimentary thing. Like, how many of you want to go? How many of you want to go and get an average lunch? How many of you want an average pizza for lunch today? I don't think that's what people look. You want to have something good to eat, don't you? Average. That's not so. So I'm going to encourage you today. Let's remove average from our speech. All right. Let's look for the things that are beyond average. Number 2, I'm going to tell you right here. Nobody admires average. You don't. You don't admire average. Settling for the status quo leads to dissatisfaction. And this is, last time we were together, this is the myth of risk, right? Average is when you settle in your comfort zone, right? This is the invitation to be outside. You know, if you plan on being anything less than you're capable of, you'll probably be unhappy for a very long time. Proverbs 22:29 reads, "Do you see someone skilled in their work? They will serve before kings. They will never serve before officials of low rank." When you see someone skilled in their work, let me tell you, people skilled in their work, they are not average. They're not average. Skilled people have developed their potential. Third thing I want to talk to you about stretching is this. Stretching always starts from the inside out. always starts from the inside out. There's a quote here from Oliver Wendell Holmes, and this is one that just sticks with me, and I don't know, maybe it'll stick with you. It reads, "Man's mind, stretched to a new idea, never goes back to its original dimensions." Think about that. Once you get that new idea, you can't unlearn that idea, right? You can't unsee that particular thing. And I'm going to tell you, when you start to grow, when you're growing, it's going to start to ooze out of you. And as you start to grow, what happens is your attitudes and your actions will follow. It always starts from the inside out. Now, I could probably do a stick man lesson here. I don't know that we have the time for that today. But I have shared with you before some of my core values stories, right? And I think I've shared the one about being at the conference in Florida, and they were going to go through this lesson on core values. And this is where I have the idea that maybe there's a core value that we might be up for. I don't know if you'll be up for this or not, but I'll just ask that you consider it. So I'm at this conference in Florida, and at least from my perspective, I paid a decent amount of money to get there, okay? And the lesson gets started, and it starts with this. These are our core values. If these are not your values, please go to the information center, tell them that these are not your values, we'll give you your money back, you can go home, no harm, no foul. Now, I'm in a room of about 3,000 people. And the values start coming out, and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, these are not my values. And nobody's getting up and going and asking for their money back. But as I sat there, I got to thinking, there's nothing really wrong with these values. In fact, these are actually pretty good values. I just haven't really thought of them before. And the first value, or one of the first ones that they gave, was we add value to people. That was one of the values that they said. We add value to people. And I got to thinking, I don't know that I do that very well, or if I do that at all. Right? You know, add value to myself, yeah, but was I adding value to other people? And at the time, I wasn't quite comfortable to say that that is what I do. But I did not have the courage to get up and go ask for my money back. And as I sat there, and I sat around 3,000 people who actually had internalized that value of adding value to people, I was like, this is a cool group of people to be with. These are the type of people I want to hang around, people who add value to people. Now, before it was all said and done, I actually, with the youth, I do 3 separate lessons to get to this. But the phrase was given to me that we are people of value who value people and add value to people. You know, there's an internal part, there's how you see others, and then what you do with others, right? And so I would tell you that I was stretched that day. I sat there, I was uncomfortable. There was some tension going on with me that day. But I'm going to tell you that from that experience, I believe that I have grown. And for those of you that have been with me since the summer of 2017, I hope that you've seen that I've grown a little bit since summer of 2017. Because as I grew, after I was stretched, right, it began to ooze out of me, and I think that my attitude and my actions have changed for the better, right? And so I tell you that story because I think maybe, just maybe, and I want you to think about this, maybe we should have a core value of we add value to people. Like, what's the harm in that value? Question is, do we do it? Because the answer for me at that time was not very often. Now every time, now it's like, how can I, now it becomes sort of the way of life. How do you add value to people, right? So that's just, we'll put that aside. We'll come back to that somewhere down the line. Number 4, stretching always requires change. Stretching always requires change. Your history is not your destiny. What you have gone through, that's fine. That's in the past. But there's an interesting thing that one of my mentors taught me, and he had a particular cadence to his voice that just always sticks out to me. But he said, we were made to be people. We were made to change. And the way he really illustrated this for effect is he said, you're not a tree. A tree, wherever it's planted, that's where it grows, that's where it stays. That's not us. You can change where you are. You can go to a different place, right? Now there's some stretching, there's some tension that will come. Sorry, there's some of those things that will happen through that. But he said, you're not a tree. You and me, we can change. We can change for the better. Our history merely shows where we have been. It's not to say that this is where you're going to end up. You can make that. Now, there is some truth that past performance predicts future performance unless you stretch. Unless you do something different. It's never too late to become what God intended you to be. Right? That's the story of Abraham. He was called, 80, 90 years old when God called him. And he's like, all right, I'll go. He stretched that late in life. Bob's not here this morning, but if you're on the men's prayer call in the morning, Bob Kroll will often say, if you're not dead, you're not done. Right? And there's a lot of truth to that. There's still the opportunity to do some new and do some different things. Number 5, stretching sets you apart. Stretching sets you apart from others. Improving yourself is the best way for you to help your team and everyone around you. Abraham set himself apart from the rest of his family when he left. And the world is better for it. Right? Now, this set apart in the, that's not set apart, that sets you. Well, let me try to, this was almost a great teaching point, and then I go and screw that up. Stretching sets you apart. Setting apart has a special word, especially in the Old Testament. All right? There's a word, it's a very churchy word that we use in the Old Testament that means set apart. Does anybody know what that word is? It's a 4-letter word. Holy. Holy means set apart. When you stretch, you become set apart. You become holy. Think about that. Think about that. Isn't that a wonderful, actually I think that's more the New Testament definition. Set apart is I'll screw that up, but I'll refine that. But 6, stretching can become a lifestyle. Stretching can become a lifestyle. You want to continually be stretching, right? You want to continually be growing, right? Because if you're not, what on earth do you need tomorrow for? What value can happen tomorrow if you're not getting better today? Just think about it. What do you need tomorrow? We should stretch every day. If you're going to work out every day, you should stretch every day, right? That's where we are. And the last thing that I'll give you is stretching gives you a shot at significance. Now, significance is a wonderful word. Stretching gives you a shot at significance. Now, there's two words that come together, and you may actually blur the lines between them, and those words are success and significance. Success and significance, there's a lot of overlap between them, but they are two very different words. Success is when things get better for you, right? Things get better. I'm successful, right? That's what it is. But significance is when things get better for other people through you. Those are two different things. Lots of people get locked in on success and looking at me, how can things be better for me, right? And that's fine. People can do that, whatever. But I'm going to tell you, significance is so much better. Significance is so much better, right? It tastes so much better. And here's the secret. Significance comes before success. Significance, and that, I mean, nobody's writing that down. That's brilliant. I'm telling you right now, write that down. Significance comes before success, right? Because whenever you help other people improve, like that's what's going to make you have, that's going to be the real thing for you. Now, the Bible is full of people that stretch their faith. Bless you. The Bible is full of people who stretch their faith, right? We could turn to any page in this book and we'll be able to look and we'll be able to see, oh, right here it is. Right here's the stretch. This is what's happening here. But I'm going to tell you right now, the number of books and the number of libraries that could be filled from people not stretching. I can't even put a number on it, right? There's a lot of people who are not willing to stretch. There's a lot of people who are not willing to grow. And whenever I teach these growth principles, I often refer to this verse. It's from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 2, verse 52. It reads, and this is the story of Jesus as a boy in the temple, but it reads, "And Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man." Jesus had to grow. That wasn't obvious to me for 40 some odd years of my life. Like I couldn't figure that out. But after I was able to figure that out, I was like, oh, there it is. There it is. Now let me pair that with the writer of Hebrews. Hebrews chapter 5, verses 7, 8, 9, and 10. Let's piece these together. It reads, "During the days of Jesus' life on earth, he offered up prayers and petitions with fervent cries and tears to the one who could save him from death. And he was heard because of his reverent submission. Son though he was, he learned obedience from what he suffered." Does that sound like stretching? Suffering? Yeah, that sounds like being uncomfortable. That sounds a little bit like stretching, right? Verse 9, "And once made perfect, he became the source of eternal salvation for all who obey him." That's significance. That's significance. Verse 10, "And he was designated by God to be a high priest in the order of Melchizedek." Now, Melchizedek's a whole other lesson for a whole other day. But we see that Jesus, through his time on earth, he stretched. He was uncomfortable. There was tension. There was all these things and there was significance because that he went through all those things. Now, I don't know what you're going through today, but I do know this. I know you and I need to be stretched. I know that, right? And in fact, I'm going to tell you this. There's people depending on you and me to be stretched. You may not know who these people are yet, but they need us. They need us to step forward into realizing the potential that God has given each one of us. So allow me this morning to encourage you to learn the lesson of the rubber band, and that the rubber band's value comes when it's stretched. And allow me to encourage you to learn the law of the rubber band this morning, that growth stops when you lose the tension between where you are and where you could be. And as I've shared with you many, many times before, it's one thing to know the law, it's another thing to obey the law. It's another thing to obey the law. Now, in a couple of weeks, who was in 8:30 service this morning? A few of you. Was the next step mentioned? Was that promoted? I wasn't here. So I need to know, I need to know a couple of things here, right? I will tell you this, if you're looking for a place to be stretched, do next steps. I would encourage everybody who has not gone through that to go through that. Now, if you've gone through it, you don't need to go through it again. You're not going to get anything else. I don't know that you'll get a whole lot if you go through it again, right? But if you haven't gone through it, I would absolutely encourage you to consider going through that challenge, that 4-week challenge. To that end, who is considering, now it's not to say that you are, but who is considering doing the next step challenge? And I'm asking this because I need to figure out how I figure out my next lessons. So anybody considering? Got a couple? Okay, all right, very good. So that just helps me with my planning. That's a very selfish question that I'm asking there. So with that concludes what I have prepared for you this morning. I'm going to stop my recording.